I ask you about that, Mr. President? Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific?
On what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room, right here. This was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up that came out of the vaults. They were there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you could think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional Obama. It was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. Now, the one thing they weren't able to do was to, and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, and admitted fraud. She paid $12 million and the Democrats for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phone election. I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big wisp. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit, we can't put this in. And neither could any other paper. Wall Street Journal's a lousy paper, very, very dishonest paper. As you see, I'm suing them for a lot of money because they do things very badly. It's got a nice name, but it's really, in my opinion, it's a terrible paper, and it can be corrupt. But just so you know, they didn't take the Steele report. It was the dossier. Remember the famous dossier? I call it the fake news dossier. The news wouldn't publish it, and I'm amazed. They had 2.5 months. It was finished 2.5 months. That was supposed to the election. And frankly, nobody cared too much about it. But that was the big thing. No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones, and then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice, they're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information, and nobody will ever see it again, but it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, morphed into the 2020 race, and the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem, but millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country. 888 murderers, many of them 50%, more than 50%, murdered more than one person. I hate to say this with such a distinguished guest, but you know, they asked me a question. I got to answer the question. No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group, and they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
How crucial is the ammunition hub that the U.S. plans to build in Subic and the Luzon corridor, considering that these will be built in areas that hosts strategic ports as well as military air bases?
You talking ammunition?
Yes, the U.S. House Congressional Committee on Appropriations approved a budget.
What's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have approved it.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't. We need ammunition. We're going to end up in a few months, we'll have more ammunition than any country has ever had. We're going to have more missiles than any country has ever had. We're going to have all the speedy missiles. We'll have the speedy ones, the slow ones, the accurate ones, the ones that are slightly less accurate. We have everything. But we will have more ammunition than any country has ever had. It's very important to me.
And how
Go ahead, please, Red.
Sir, when you say that you're close to making a trade deal, what gaps remain? And for President Marcos, sir, I was just wondering, do you not think that perhaps the Philippines hosting U.S. missile systems could be considered escalatory by China, especially because they can strike deep into mainland China? Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to be with this gentleman. You know, I've known him, and I've known his family, actually, but I've known him. And I assume you're from the Philippines? Are you from the Philippines?
Yes, sir.
That's good. You're very lucky to be from the Philippines. It's a great place. But we're going to have a very good relationship. I mean, I know you had some problems with another president, and it was not your fault. It was the president's fault. And the country was maybe tilting toward China, but we untilted it very, very quickly. But you know, you had a country that was tilting toward China for a period of time. And I just don't think that would have been good for you. You can deal with China, you should deal with China, but when I got elected, everything changed and they came right back to us. Say it again. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. President, I just wanted to piggyback off.
Sorry, I have a question to President Marcos.
I'll let you
Yes,
answer for
yes. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
It was about whether having U.S. missiles hosted in the Philippines could be considered escalatory by China.
All of the what we consider part of the modernization of the Philippine military is really as a response to the circumstances that surround the situation around the South China Sea, and now what we used to refer to as Asia Pacific, which we have expanded now to the Indo-Pacific. And if we would certainly, like in any kind of military spending, we would wish that it wasn't necessary, but it is. And so that is what we are doing. And as an adjunct to the question about the ammunition production, this is actually the United States is assisting the Philippines in what we call our self-reliance defense program, which is to allow us to be self-reliant and to be able to stand our own 2 feet, whatever the circumstances that occur in the future. And that the reason that we have encouraged more interaction with the United States is because it is necessary. And it is not just with the United States. It is with all our neighboring countries and even countries as far afield as the Scandinavian countries, the EU. And so this is an ongoing process. And again, I will stress the point that we do this because we feel it is necessary.
And don't forget, just as tantamount to what you're asking, the Philippines were loaded up with ISIS and a lot of terrorists, and they were at a very, very dangerous point. And during my administration, we went in and we wiped them out, working with the Philippines, but we wiped them out. But if we didn't go in, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know who would be your president right now. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of talent on going into the Philippines and wiping out terrorists. They had a tremendous problem
We did.
during my administration, and we cleaned it up. We got them out, and now you really have a good, solid country again.
I believe so. Yes.
How can you
Just a question. I want to follow up on the housing question.
Yeah.
You got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on social security. How important is it we have no tax on home sales, capital gains, to unleash the housing market in this country?
Well, we're thinking about that, but would also unleash it just by lowering the interest rates. If the Fed would lower the rates, we wouldn't even have to do that. But we are thinking about no tax on capital gains on houses. And very impressed that you asked that question because nobody knew that.
Well,
How did you find that out? That's very.
I wonder why there's somebody I'm very close to.
There's a leaker. There's a leaker.
I've also got a question. I find it a very interesting